Elden Ring, black hole rainbows, and eyes Nonogram. This is Staying In.
Okay, Pete, do you need a note?
What kind of note?
A fiver.
Yeah, look at him, he's hard done by. If you pledge £2 a month, I was thinking the way we're going to do this, Pete, is we'll take a word each back and forth.
Oh my God. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, why not? Do you want to start or shall I start?
You can start.
Okay. Happy
Birthday
to
you.
Happy
Birthday
to
you.
Happy
Birthday,
dear
Sam.
Happy
Birthday
to
you.
and
Many
more.
That was genuinely really entertaining. Next year, can you do syllable by syllable?
It's going to be easier to edit than usual, isn't it, Sam?
The funny thing is, like, we do 2 episodes a month, right? Which means we do 24 episodes a year. Which means that 4 out of every 24 episodes in a year is about a birthday. Double digits percentage of our episodes end up singing happy birthday. Which I love.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Spread the cheer. Sam, how was your birthday?
It was absolutely sublime. I had a really, really, really nice day. I'm currently off work. I was with my son, so he shared a lot of my birthday with me. Luckily, we're kind of into the same thing, soft play, chilling out, making trains.
Beer.
So, you know, he had a blast, whilst I was also having a blast.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some lovely gifts. Lovely, lovely gifts. Some of them I opened in unusual places, but we'll get to that. What did I get? Oh, I got a Grinning Gargoyle board game backpack. And this is something I've wanted for quite a while, because usually when I go around to visit Chris, or like say we go on holiday as a family or whatever, I'm usually shoving board games into, like, you know, one of those big blue IKEA bags, or like a bag for life or whatever. That's all well and good. Like, it works fine, but like, it's still a bit exposed to the elements. They're not really the easiest thing to carry or like shove anywhere. But this is like a full on, you know, proper covered bag that holds, I don't know how much it holds. I think it holds about 8 or 9 Ticket to Rides worth board games.
You look like a Deliveroo driver.
Yeah, that's what my father-in-law said. Was basically I could do a side hustle now as a Deliveroo driver.
Somebody say.
Now, while I fully support, Sam, every decision that you make in your life and every lovely thing that you enjoy, and I am never a person to shame someone for their hobby, I do remember you, I think it's all right for me to say, ripping the piss out of me
For what?
for purchasing a case with which to transport models in. I remember having a conversation with you where you said, why do you need a padded case? Why do you need a foam case to carry this around? And I think then you used some rude words afterwards. But what you're telling me, as far as I can tell, if I've understood you, is that you've bought a carry case for your games.
Well, I did buy it.
Well, sorry, you've been purchased and are very excited to use a case to carry board games, which, let us not forget, come in their own cases.
Yeah, but he hasn't got like a bindle which he has like on a stick which he puts over his shoulder.
No, I'm well aware. What I'm saying is that there's a hypocrisy here which I'm liking to challenge.
I love the fact that like you had that there as a prop, as if like Well, as soon as you found out what I got, that I got one of these bags, you're like, well, the next podcast.
I'll be discussing this with Sam on the podcast.
I mean, clearly he's got over it. When did Sam rip the piss out of you?
It was about 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So what else did you get? What was your favourite gift, and why was it ours? The one that we got you.
Jesus.
I mean, we got him 3 things, Pete.
Yeah, you got me 3 things, some lovely things.
I had to explain to him, Pete, that it wasn't that we each got him one thing.
Oh, you could have done. That would have made it fun because I could have guessed who got what. You got me a game from Helvetique, and we're massive fans of Helvetique on this show. Tucano, which is a lovely little game, lovely little card game that I played with Kris on Sunday. More on that later. And then I also got the Vision collection, so Tom King's entire Vision run from Marvel, which I've been after for a long, long time because I was a real big Tom King fan after the stuff that he did with the Batman, even though it definitely he took him a while to kind of hit his stride with that series, but some of the stuff he did, especially the Joker and Riddler stuff, was exceptionally impressive. And then the other thing you got me was was Leighton's Mystery Journey, Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy Deluxe Edition on the Switch. Now, I believe this was, and I'm sure, Pete, you'll correct me on this, this was originally a 3DS game?
I think it was.
Yeah, I'd imagine because it's like the Deluxe Edition, it's been
Fancy pantsed.
sort of pimped up for the Switch. And this is kind of like, I guess this harks back to a conversation we had the other week about the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, because this was another series of games that I first played during the era of sheepdog trials in Scotland. And another series that I kind of sheepishly picked up thinking, oh, this would be a light and breezy, quick one and done puzzle game. One of the Professor Laytons, I can't remember which one. I'm sure if I dug around I could refresh my memory. But that kind of game of picking up something, having this sort of like Studio Ghibli-esque style animation, but then like doing these very traditional logic-esque puzzles. You know, you like go into a shop and speak to a shopkeeper and it's like, ha ha ha, well, we're having a lovely day. Oh, isn't it a lovely day? Now solve my puzzles about bees. You're like, Christ. And that was it. That was my birthday. And what a lovely birthday it was.
And you're gonna cap it all off, weren't you, Sam? On that Sunday. We had plans. I thought I'd take you out, I'd buy you some dinner.
Yes. Well, not cap it all off. It would have been the start of a brilliant birthday.
Oh yes, it was the prefix. Yeah.
We had great plans, Pete. You know, not often that a new film about the Batman called The Batman comes out around one's birthday.
Yeah.
So Kris and I had plans, great plans.
Yeah.
As he said, he was going to buy me dinner, take me out.
Oh, the full shebang.
The full shebang. So I arrived at our designated pub of choice, pretty close-ish to the luxury cinema. Sent Kris a text saying, I'm here, just chilling out. Whenever you're ready. Got a text back from Kris saying, my car's broken down. Waiting for green flag. I was like, oh, okay. So I'll drive to you.
Okay, that makes sense.
First mistake.
Yes, because bearing in mind, I'd been in my car literally about 10 minutes, so the heating hadn't even warmed up, and then suddenly it felt like the car had run out of petrol, and I checked and it hadn't, but for all intents and purposes, the car thought it had, and I just managed to, with that last ounce of energy, kind of just squeeze it into a car parking space, so I wasn't blocking the road. But that was it. It was conked out completely. And Sam very kindly came and waited with me. I'd rung up the breakdown company, and they were like, "Okay, look, it's going to be like 2 hours." You know, I was like, "Right, okay." So we went to a pub in this village. Which thankfully was nice, wasn't it, Sam?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was gorgeous. But like, obviously, the allotted time that we've been given by Green Flag was too much to actually think about going to see the Batman. So very quickly we had to knock that one on the head. You know, people have been thinking for years, what is the one thing that can beat the Batman? You know, Joker, Riddler.
It turns out it's a broken fuel pump.
So is this a situation in which I've seen the Batman and you've not? I've seen a film and before everybody else.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Oh.
Okay.
I had Sam's blessing to go and see it because I did say to him, look, I want to see it with you, buddy. Let's see it on Friday. He said, oh no, because I said I wanted to take my girlfriend to see it the day after because I have a rule that I see films with Sam first, you know, then afterwards. Because, you know, I've never forgiven myself still. I didn't see Endgame with Sam for the first time. And I just think, that would have been such an amazing experience because Spider-Man No Way Home was like, genuinely, I'll never forget that experience.
Yeah, and just think about me now on Friday night watching the Batman, where it's just going to be Kris staring at me the whole time. So we got back to the car at 9 o'clock in the evening. What time did I get to you, Kris? Probably about sort of 7:30, maybe?
Yeah,
like
it was about that. Yeah.
So 9 o'clock in the evening. No sign of this recovery person.
Okay.
So me and Kris thought that we'd just spend some time in my car. I'd just finished a book, Happy by Darren Brown. I had brought it for Kris and just passed it to him, lent it to him, and he went to go and put it back in his car. And then I opened up my birthday presents from all of you lot in the front seat of my car. So, you know,
glorious,
nice little treat. We tried to work out if a Helvetic game was small and compact enough to play in the front seat of a Toyota.
Yeah,
and it's not. Oh. Not Tucano anyway. And then another hour passed, and we were like, okay. And then another half an hour passed. It's like 10:30 at night. And by this time, Kris had exhausted all of the weird, funny stories from the metro.
It's a rabbit hole, Pete. It's incredible. Anytime when Sam's driving on passenger seat, I do this thing where I go onto the Metro's news and just go into the weird category. It's phenomenal. There was a bloke who does art on his living room rug with a vacuum cleaner. That was a good story.
Is this the famous Metro? Or is this a specific, like, is this Liverpool or Manchester?
No. It's just, you know, the free newspaper you get on the train.
Oh my goodness me!
And so and we were just kind of giving up hope really. And then the big tow truck arrives. Sam and this guy pushed my car into a place where we can get winched it up, but then we had to wait for Green Flag to authorise it being winched onto the back.
Right.
So Kris emptied all the stuff out of his car, and then it was all hands on deck to help push Chris's car into the right place so that the winching could occur if it was going to occur. So it's another sort of half an hour waiting for that winching to occur, and it's like, right, now off to the garage. So we're like, okay, off to the garage. So another sort of 10-15 minute drive, getting close to like 11:15 at this point. Finally got to the garage. Kris. So it's me and the recovery guy pushing his car from the back. Kris, for whatever reason, decided not to get in the car, but was just pushing from his front door. And we had to turn into the garage. And I got to a point where it's like, Kris, it might be better off if you're actually in the car, as we were heading just straight towards someone.
Oh, no, it was really bad, Pete, because as I was turning, because the car wasn't on, as I was turning, my steering wheel locked. And we were heading towards a wall. And I said, sorry, lads, you're going to actually have to get back to the front and push the car back.
Oh, for God's sake.
And this bloke, bless him, he was really amiable, but he did say he travelled all the way from North Wales.
Oh, to help these two idiots. The car.
And then we got back to Chris's house.
God's
and
sake.
Kris, made me a nice drink, and we just to decompress from the situation and not to waste a really nice birthday eve. And just to say, not seeing the Batman aside, it genuinely was a really nice,
it was lovely
3 or 4 hours with a good friend. It was, we weren't sitting there being pissed off at the situation. It's I'm gutted I can't go and see the Batman.
It wasn't like the 7 hours you spent with me, Pete, in A&E.
That's true.
Yeah, that was a... Let's let's move on from there.
And then it was like just at the end of playing Tucano, I suddenly remembered that in the process of clearing out Chris's car so he could get winched, Chris had given me back my copy of Happy by Darren Brown. And when I went off to help Chris push the car to a winchable position, I'd put it on the ground and then forgotten to pick it back up again. So somewhere just outside of where Chris lives, there's a copy of Happy by Darren Brown. And if anyone wants to pick that copy up for free, then it's available.
Have it. Yeah. What an adventure.
Oh, I forgot. One of the other things I did get for my birthday was a copy of Elden Ring.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
The new hotness.
It is the new hotness. Now, there's a lot of discourse going on online. All of it dreadful. And incredibly tedious. So what is... So, for those that don't know... Elden Ring, as far as I understand it, is a Souls-like. So if you play Dark Souls or you play Demon Souls, it's a bit like that, is my understanding.
Soulsborne-like, yeah.
Soulsborne
game, yeah.
Soulsborne game. And so we're talking difficult. We're talking unforgiving. We're talking a little bit janky here and there, but you use that jank to kind of try and defeat it. We're talking...
bad user experience.
Yes.
Bad user interface.
Tick, tick, tick.
Tick, tick, tickety, tick. We're talking very hardcore player base that absolutely loves it. And also, it's my understanding is that it's got... Is it...
All right, okay. Brilliant. Right. Chris, he's either going to say one of two authors here, and what's great is one of them's dead.
Can't libel the dead.
So my understanding, so it's obviously the person who does the Souls games is a huge part of Elden Ring, and is it J.R.R. Martin?
I mean, who wrote those Lord of the Thrones books?
That's better than I could have imagined.
Game of Rings.
But the Game of Thrones lad.
Yeah, George R.R. Martin.
George R.R. Martin. Yes. Not a George with a J, a George with a G.
George R.R. Lewis.
Yeah, apparently he had some involvement with the story, but how much involvement no one actually really knows, because it's a Soulsborne game and they've never been the most... Story's never been present in their mind. Like there is a narrative and things happen to you and people say things at you, but it's never... Everything's done in this weird sort of... Everything's just... The narrative is done in a weird sort of way where it's all happening in media res, so with the understanding that you should already really know what's going on and nothing is ever overtly explained.
So what's the core experience on a moment to moment? Let's pretend I've not played a Dark Souls game. Let's pretend that I don't really know much about Game of Thrones. What is the actual, like, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis in the game? Like, what are you actually doing?
Day-to-day.
Day-to-day. You get up, you go, I'm going to live in the Elden Ring universe. What are you doing?
Okay, well, so the basic premise of what I'd say is a Soulsborne game is that you are inhabiting this world. You have some sort of main sort of quest that you're heading towards. So say, for example, the original Dark Souls, where you've got to ring these 3 bells. Mm-hmm. You'll be fighting a myriad of, to be reductive about it, Lovecraftian-esque style creatures to reach that goal. And each time you kill a creature, you essentially accrue a sort of currency, which is souls in Dark Souls. I think it's blood echoes in Bloodborne, and I don't know what it is in Sekiro, but in Elden Ring, it's runes that you accrue. And then you can spend that resource to upgrade certain things, maybe buy spells, do lots of kind of things. But the twist here is that when you get killed, you lose everything that you're that you're carrying on you in terms of you lose all that resource that you've accrued. And the only way to get it back is to revisit the previous site where you got killed, collect it all, and then carry on. So there's quite a lot of repetition and sort of it feels kind of time loop-esque.
Well, you were saying like you lose all of that. Can you like bank it?
Yeah, so if you visit a fireplace,
Yeah,
or a place of grace, as they're called in Elden Ring, you can essentially, that's where you like level up and you spend it, but you can never like bank it and put it aside somewhere. Whenever you die, you will always lose whatever you're carrying, and there's no way that you can like put stuff aside so you can go somewhere safe. And the idea in Soulsborne's games is kind of you never know what's around the corner, and it's very, very difficult to really anticipate. So I was playing Elden Ring last night, and I got to a point where I got 2,000 souls. I literally went around a corner and made the mistake of doing something called traversing the mist, which is when you kind of go into an area where you don't know what's on the other side of this mist, and it turned out there was a boss and he killed me, and then suddenly, well, I'm in a loop now because I either sacrificed the 2,000 runes that I've spent the last 30, 40 minutes collecting, or I try and beat this boss. And I mean, there's lots more besides that, but that's kind of what I think the core of the, the Soulsborne game is like. But it makes it really, really challenging because at any point you could feel like you've lost a lot of progress. But that's kind of the thing about it. That's kind of the thing going into this game is that very early on you've got to learn how to be okay with losing quite a lot of progress and quite a lot of experience, because essentially each death is a lesson. That's the real currency of the game, is each time you die you've got to take something forward and learn something about this world and how it works. So that boss I was talking about before, I think he was called something like Angry Pumpkin Head, and basically he was this massive guy with this massive mace, but he just had a steel pumpkin on his head. So I spent about 40 minutes fighting him, and most of that time, like half an hour of that, was basically just learning how to fight him, like what to do to get around his attacks, which ones should I dodge and which ones should I sort of press on, what weapon should I be using, and more importantly, can I actually kill him? Because very early on, there's no like level scaling in Elden Ring, so you basically got to assess if you're the right level to kill something based off like how much damage you're doing and how much like how big their life bar is, and that then you kind of gauge like, yeah, I can beat this guy. Yeah, it's going to take a while, but I think I can beat this guy. Which is the other, really enjoyable things about those games, is that feeling of I've just got to crack this puzzle, and I know I can take this guy down. It's super, super enjoyable. So there are a few things that Elden Ring has changed on the Soulsborne formula, which some people have said makes it the most accessible and easy Souls game. But I think the people who say that are people who've played like all 6 or however many there's been Soulsborne games. And there's one thing that happens to you when you really like a series like Soulsborne, is that you'll say anything to get anyone else to play a game.
Yeah. Like this is the... So like cards on the table. I was one of those people who imported Demon's Souls on the PS3 back in the day, right? Because I'm about the whole thing, right? And I played a few hours and I really, really enjoyed it. And then my PlayStation 3 died and I didn't go back to it because I was so annoyed about losing progress. And then I'd lost my entire save.
Yeah.
So I never went back. But I did enjoy what I played of it. But as a bit of an outsider to the series, it does feel like in the development of the game, they've made a lot of incorrect decisions, right? Traditionally incorrect decisions. So, for example, my understanding is that actually there's a tutorial section in the game and it's down a hole.
Yeah,
right?
You could miss it.
You could miss it. which is something that in traditional or sort of like modern, I should say, video game design thinking, that is unthought of, right? Like you should not do that. Like the whole point of training and a tutorial is to say to your players, okay, here's how you get a grasp on how the world works to some degree, how the mechanics how you can actually interact with this title actually works. It's a space in which to learn, right? And the idea that you could just be like, nah, or not even know it's there is like a faux pas in terms of things like user experience and stuff like that. But clearly, there's an audience that loves that, right? Clearly, like there is an audience that is just like, oh man, that is great. Oh yeah, love it. And so to me, as a bit of an outsider, it feels like a bit of an anomaly because there's always this feeling that I'm missing something, right? Like I feel like I want to be playing Elden Ring. I feel like I want to be part of that conversation. Happened with Sekiro, happens with the Dark Souls games. Like I always feel like, oh, I'm not part of the conversation. But also kind of related to that, I feel like I don't think I would like it. I don't think I would actually like to play 80 hours of that or however long it is, right? Like, so what is it about it that, like, are you becoming a convert? Like, are you at the point where you're like, oh, yeah, like, this is, I totally get it and I totally understand. You really do have to play them to kind of understand them. Or are you in a place where it's like a curious, different kind of experience and you're enjoying the novelty of it?
I think there's a little bit of column A, column B. I mean, Bloodborne is in one of my top 5 games of all time, and I've never completed it. But as an experience, I think it's incredible. I went to go, was it the Victorian Albert? Did I think back in like 2018, they did like a video game art exhibition. And as part of it, Matt Lees essentially wrote a spoken word piece about one of the first bosses you face in the Bloodborne. And, you know, I was nearly moved to tears by it. That's kind of what those games have the capacity to do. And it does it all through sort of non-traditional, I guess maybe you'd say like Western storytelling means. And it's, for me, I think I find it very fulfilling as a player to experiment with things like attrition and frustration and exploration and have those things inform my journey going forward, and that feeling of growth and becoming a better player and actually learning about a world just through playing it, rather than having someone say, this is what the world is, this is how it works. You do everything just by interacting with the enemies that you're up against. And like no other game series that I know of really gets across that feeling of growth, of maturity, of actually feeling like you're genuinely succeeding at something, and there is feels like visible and actual improvement as in terms of like your skill set as you go. Like there's no achievement that says, right, you're now, you know, level thing and you've unlocked this or whatever. It's like everything is on you as a player, which is why I think like when people say, oh, it's really accessible, like I just don't believe them, because it's like someone sitting down to play basic fantasy role playing and all they're told is, right, you're a warrior, here's some dice, go. And it's like, you know, it's like the first time that we played basic fantasy and we were just like, you just think it's like super accessible. It's just an RPG. We walked in a room, we all got killed. I mean, that's basically the thing about Elden Ring that's really struck with me is how much like those early Gen 1 RPG games that it's actually like.
So that's exactly what I get the impression of when you talk about it. I think to myself, this feels like an OSR game. Like this feels like you know, OD&D basically. And like I know what people mean when they say accessible, because, you know, as with OD&D, you could do anything. Like, you know, like it's very easy for a DM to turn around and say, well, it's easy. Just tell me what you want to do. But actually, and I personally find that really liberating and really freeing. That's why I really like that OD&D stuff. Mm-hmm. But I can also see why people might want a character sheet with everything that you can do on it, right? Like, I can totally see why somebody would want, but I can see on here I've got 20 points in climbing, so I'm going to use climbing, like, to do this, and then I roll the dice and then I win. Like, I can see how that's kind of accessible in some ways. Whereas, so yeah, like, Elden Ring doesn't strike me as, like, because I've heard that too. I've heard that, like, oh, it's the most accessible one. And I'm like, yeah, but like, compared to what? Like,
yeah, exactly. I think compared to previous Souls games, it does do some things that I think make it more appealing. Like, Dan got this for his birthday as well. I'm like, bloody hell! Like,
I can't wait.
Hopefully, Dan's not listening to this. I don't think he does. But I went onto a beach the other day and there was a giant crab, and I was like, bloody hell! If anything's going to get him to turn the game off immediately, is a sight of a giant crab.
Our mate is not a big fan of crabs, is he?
No, he's not.
No, he's not. And I'm thinking what we might do is actually, like, co-op some of this when he finally gets around to starting this, because obviously we both got Horizon Forbidden West and this at the same time practically, and like, I have no idea what to carry on playing. I think I'm just going to put my head down, play Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and just see where where the wind takes me, because that game, I tell you, is quickly sneaking into my top 10, maybe even top 5 games. It's superb.
So good.
Anyway, but there are things it does which are really accessible. Like, so the minute you get out of that tutorial section, basically you meet this guy called the Tree Sentinel who just takes you out with like one hit, and you're just like, great, welcome to the game.
Yeah.
And in previous Soulsborne games, there's quite a strict linearity to them, and which is quite frustrating, but quite rewarding in some way, because you always feel like you're making progress. And how Soulsborne games generally worked in the past, which is another thing that I really love about them, is that their geography is impeccable. So you'd basically go from like horrible corridors to overcome some sort of obstacle and then find a shortcut back to where you started. So essentially you learn this whole world, and part of the game is not only learning where creatures are and how they behave, but also where all the shortcuts are in order to navigate the world. Right. So after you've been in it for like 10, 15 hours, you suddenly know, you just feel like you've inhabited this world for much longer, because everything intertwines with everything else. And it's like, right, I need to go over here now, which means I need to nip through here, down these stairs, off, and I'm away without consulting a map whatsoever, which is just... it's just impeccable design. It's incredible. Whereas here in Elden Ring, it's all open world. So there's no real sense of it being a tight sort of geography, but instead it's all explorable from the get-go. So think like Breath of the Wild, for example. And that linearity, it was rewarding, because you always felt like you had some sort of yardstick in order to measure your progress. Right, I'm a little bit further this evening, I've gotten to this point, whereas before I started there. But I always found it really frustrating, because it's kind of like, I can only go in this direction, this enemy is really tough, it's just gonna I just feel pointless doing it, because I just, I'm meant to be at this level, I'm meant to be able to beat them, and I'm not, and that's frustrating. However, with this Tree Sentinel, it's kind of like, right, I can't beat this guy, so I'm turning around and I'm walking in another direction. And I literally just like pointed my character in another direction and just started walking, and just to see what I come across. And it's magical. It's just wonderful to be able to be like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, so I just went off into another direction. I'm literally just picking a point on the compass and walking, and just seeing what I discover and seeing what I come across. And I think that's where some of that accessibility comes from, is that, when Dan starts playing this game, I can tell him, if you're frustrated, just walk away and go somewhere else. And you'll come back there in a few hours and be like leveled up, and you might have no problem getting past that difficulty. The other thing it does is that, so traditionally, if you die in a Soulsborne game, you get basically resurrected at the last sort of fireplace. what are they called?
Bonfire.
That you ignited, which can be really annoying because usually that would involve something called like a boss run, which would effectively be you started at a bonfire, gone through all these enemies, got to a boss has killed you in one hit. Right, now I've got to go kill all those enemies again because everything other than significant bosses resurrects as well every time you rest or get resurrected from a bonfire. So you got to fight all those enemies again, go back to the boss, hopefully pick up all the souls you lost, try and remember a bit about how that boss worked in terms of helping you fight them. And some of these runs could be quite long, like 10, 15 minutes just to get back to a boss, just to be killed instantly, and knowing that you've got to beat that boss to progress. However, here, there's checkpoints before each significant boss. So you can choose to either be resurrected at this checkpoint or at the last bonfire that you went to, meaning that it like cuts out that frustrating boss run experience. And then the third and final thing I can think off the top of my head that it does is if you're able to wipe out certain groups of similar enemies, it refills all your flasks that give you health and magic points, meaning that there's an incentive to like stick with taking down certain groups of enemies, knowing that the flasks which give you health and which give you regenerate magic get refilled. So there's definitely things that before, when you get frustrated as a player, it's like, right, now I've got to go onto a guide and try and learn how bloody like weapon upgrades work, and you're using that weapon where you've got to put experience into dexterity or faith, or you've got to make sure you're level something in intelligence, or else you can't even wield that weapon, you idiot. Whereas here, there's like immediately, for anyone playing the game, there's 3 things I can say just off the bat which feel more natural and normal to like other game players who aren't familiar with this world. So I guess that's the thing that kind of makes it a bit more accessible. But to actually really get the most from the game, you've got to do that digging. Like, you've got to go through the menus, the horrible menus, and work out what attributes are and what everything means. Just like basic fantasy role-playing game, really.
Pete, what are your thoughts on black holes?
Ooh, well, I find them a little bit
Here we go.
bit dense, but also a little bit empty.
Well, we don't know if they're empty.
The more you know.
Well, there's no.
Well, no. All we know is that no light escapes from a black hole, but that doesn't mean there's nothing in it.
It's a little bit of a. I don't know. No, can't think of anything. So black holes. I'm a fan.
Okay, great.
I think to myself, they seem interesting.
They do.
I wouldn't want to get too close to one. And also, the movie Event Horizon is named after the point at which you get so close to a black hole that you could never escape it. And that's what an event horizon is. There you go. Because theoretically, time stops at that point. So that's everything I know about black holes.
Okay.
Well done.
Thanks.
Do you have the same views on rainbows?
Rainbows.
Is there an event horizon to a rainbow?
Yeah, that's for the pot of gold, isn't it?
First of all, rainbows, right? Rainbows have 2 very distinct associations in my mind. Okay. 3, actually. 1, Zippy and Bungle. 2, the wonderful pride flag. And 3, there was like a range of biros that had like, they were all like black ink, but they had like a rainbow colouring on like the nib holder bit. I don't know if you ever had one of them, but it was definitely a pen in the 80s. It was like a ballpoint pen in the 80s.
Oh,
and
I
it was,
know what you mean.
Really struck me as like really, like I really associate rainbows with those 3 things. So I'm a fan personally. I think all 3 of those are absolute bangers. So big fan.
Wonderful. I've got strange facts about rainbows. It's just, how you get those facts that just bury their way into your brain. They never shift.
Yeah. My brain's full of them, yeah.
So when you look at a rainbow, the only way you can see a rainbow is when you're looking at it at an angle of 42 degrees.
Also, you're only ever seeing half a rainbow.
Exactly. And you can sing a rainbow, you can't sing a black hole.
Yes, you can. There's that song by Muse.
Oh, yeah. Oh, crap, I saw them live as well, Black Holes and Revelations.
J.R.R. Muse.
Right, so the reason I'm talking about these things is that we were sent a game to review from a new company called June Dune. Got to be careful how I say that. June Dune.
Okay.
June Dune.
Called, you've probably worked it out, Black Hole Rainbows.
Okay.
Oh.
Now,
okay.
These folks seem to have done, and as in it is finished now, a Kickstarter for this, and it seems to have been successful.
Yes.
So that's good. So now it's up to you to tell us whether or not those Kickstarter fans have wasted their money, or whether or not it's actually any good, and they should be looking forward to it.
So this is really interesting, because usually when we hear, well, for me personally, when I hear, okay, Kickstarter, and I designed this during lockdown, it's like, all right, okay, what's this going to be? And so Sam and I were talking about this today, because when Sam came around to play Tucano, I showed him the game and said, look at this, Sam. I pulled off the lid, this lovely black box with like this multicolored like edges around the sides of it. I've been watching Arcane recently. Sam recommended it to me, and I said to Sam, I said, this series is better than it has every right to be.
Okay,
it's an adaptation from video game series that I associate with esports, and they've made this phenomenal television series. This game, Black Hole Rainbows, when I lifted off the box and I said, this game is better than it has every right to be. And that's not to render it a disservice, but thinking back to what I was saying earlier about what I think about a stereotypical Kickstarter game during lockdown, I was not expecting this. This is a 2 to 6 player game that is quite fast paced, it's quite frantic, and it's got a wonderful kind of tongue-in-cheek humour, where the premise of the game is to be the first to create a certain number of supernovas. And every time you create a supernova, you get not just like a flimsy little paper card, you get like a metal coin. And I've got this bag that's just full of these wonderful metal coins that genuinely, Pete, look like they're legal tender in some kind of steampunk world.
Okay.
That's just every time you get a point, you get one of those. And every player gets a plastic bowl. It almost looks like a little dice tray. Every player gets one of these. This is your black hole, and on it there's like, it's segmented. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to collect these light stones. Once you get 6 of a kind, you can cache them in to the outer areas of space, which is this neoprene mat, because of course there's also a neoprene mat which is in the center, where you jettison your stones there, you cache them in to create a supernova, and you get your coin. But these light stones aren't just flimsy bits of, splintered bits of wood that were just on the shop floor and they've just sprayed them. They look like they've just like landed on the planet, like in a meteor shower. They're all brightly coloured. There's one that's transparent, that's a wild. And you look into the bag, you draw them out of a bag when you're setting up the game. It just looks like you're looking into like, a bowl of Lucky Charms, essentially. I played this with my neighbour and his child, and we all were like, oh gosh, we were resisting the temptation to just, nibble on them, because they look so tantalising. I can't quite explain it. You know, what are they called? In like Pick and Mix, you get like the rock, not candy, you know what I mean? It looks like the things you get in Lucky Charms, but you can actually get them as like Pick and Mix things, like rock candy. Right. I can't remember what you call it, but or space candy or something. I can't remember. Maybe I'm just making up things here. And you may be thinking, okay, how does this game work? Right, well, what happens is, on your go, you begin by rolling a dice. And it's one of those games, it's a fast-paced game where people are picking up and changing things. Those light stones you've got keep bouncing around the table. You roll a dice, that tells you, oh, am I taking 1 or 2 of my stones and passing them to the person to my left or my right? Or am I gaining a stone from the centre of the board? I then place however many light stones I want into my black hole from my hand. If I get one of each colour of 7. They then go into the outer space, and I get my supernova. Or what I could do is think, I can't do that yet. I'm going to gamble. I'm going to roll the supernova roller, which is, I believe, a D20 dice, and there's 3 sides of it have a symbol on them. If you get that symbol, you immediately get a supernova coin. But every time you roll that dice, you have to cash in one of your stones. So it's a bit of a push your luck there.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, you take 2 light stones from the center thing and put them into your hand. What spices this game up and makes it frantic, makes it funny, makes it silly, is that you have cards that act as interrupters. And you can play those at any point, on your go and other people's goes.
Okay.
So, for example, one might be a chance where you roll the dice and you get to take just 3 rolls of the supernova for free and just see what you get. Others will allow you to draw more cards. Others, which are like the mirror dimension, you can swap any or all of your light stone from one player's hand with different colours from outer space. One I played, which you can only play once in the entire game, which is Doomsday, where you detonate every single person's black hole. So basically you tip out their black hole thing into the centre thing. So they might be one away from completing it. And it may sound like it's quite laborious, but this is actually a really fast, fun-paced kind of game. And the cards themselves are these round discs. It's like little coasters that you're playing with. And there's enough novelty here and variety in them. I mean, there's probably about I'd say 16, 17 different card types. But you're playing frantically, you're drawing up. And we had an absolute blast with this game. And I'm thinking it's a game I take to Aircon. And funny enough, as somebody who's been playing board games for a while, I've played games that are quite similar to this. Cards that are interrupters, stuff that's bouncing around the table. But I think for somebody new to the hobby, I think it's a worthwhile investment. And I think genuinely, what in addition to being great fun, what really adds to this is just the sheer quality of the components.
I was going to say, I'm looking at images of the components here, and it looks like they spent serious money putting this thing together.
It's sublime, and they say that they really wanted to make it something that felt good in the hands. A little bit like when we talked about A Gentle Rain, about the design and the materials there. And it really does work because you feel the weight of those coins. You want to touch those coins. You want to get them. You want to handle the light stones.
But even things like and I know this seems really silly, but even things like the iconography and so for example the iconography on the coins is just really nicely done.
Yeah.
Right. Like just the symbols that they've used seem like really well put together.
It feels like I own this game in its base version, and I've gone online and I've bought components to pimp it up, and also you can kind of go online at blackholerainbows.com and you can get advanced versions of playing the game as well. And I am keeping it. I'm genuinely keeping this one because I think come Christmas time with groups of people, I think this would be a really good fun thing to play because it was so easy to pick up and play. Yeah. And we had a lot of fun doing it. It's been a while, genuinely, since I've had an experience quite like that.
Actually, I've been thinking about value a lot recently. I've been thinking about how do we define value? These are the sorts of interesting conversations and thoughts I have in my own mind, right? Alex loves it. So, but in my mind,
just sitting there in silence, just
What does?
All right, he's having one of those again, is he? Just turn the light off. See you in the morning.
Throw a blanket over him.
Yeah, tuck me in
like a canary.
Just been thinking about value, darling. So, in my line of work, that the word value gets chucked around a lot. Like the idea is basically figure out what the most valuable thing is, and unfortunately it's used in a kind of abstract way, so that sometimes charlatans can pretend like they're talking about something real when really they're kind of using the word to kind of avoid talking about anything concrete. But one of the things that I think is most interesting when it comes to making games is thinking about what is valuable to a player. And I think value has a lot of different meanings, right? So it has monetary, but it also has things like utility. So I've been thinking about it a lot for some of the games that we make. And one of the things that I also like to do is faff around on Reddit. And on the Android gaming subreddit, somebody said, I've got £5 or whatever it was. What game do I buy? I want to get the most value out of this. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So I went and looked at what it was, and there was a few different recommendations in there. And one person said, well, look, most of the games on Android are free to play. So the value here surely is really a moot point because it's all free. And I got thinking about it, but of course, value is also my time. Right, like there's a mix. There's a mix of time, cost, utility, like a bunch of different things that kind of add up to when people say things like, "Oh, that's good value," right? So one of the recommendations for the games was a game called Eyes Nonogram, and it's from a company called Gamefox that is based out in South Korea.
So by nonogram, I take it it's just another word for Picross.
Yeah. So
absolutely love these.
Yeah. So nonogram puzzles, Picross. I think most people. I think we've talked about these before. Did we talk about Murder by Numbers at one point?
Yes, we did.
We do. It's incredible. Yeah.
So, but TLDR, you have a 10 by 10 square grid, or higher, whatever it is.
Sometimes
bigger, sometimes smaller. And the idea is that you need to fill in all of the lines to create a picture. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, you have a pixel art image, and you need to fill in the squares that provide essentially the outline of that image. And the only way that you know how to do that is that there are numbers up the vertical and the horizontal axis of the grid that say how many squares in that grid will be filled in. And in what order. So a 10 by 10 grid, for example, if you were to fill in all 10 squares, it would say 10, and you would fill all 10 things in. The puzzle is essentially taking the information of all of the 10 by 10 grid and figuring out through logic which parts of the grid to fill in. It's that nice level of puzzle for me where it's just tricky enough that it makes me actually sit and think about it, but it's not so tricky that I feel like an idiot. And that's what Eyes Nonogram is, right? And it's free to download, but I turned the ads off, and it was like £3.50 or something like that.
Yeah, it's like £3.56 or £3.60,
something like that, and which is expensive in terms of mobile. We'll talk about value again, but actually, in the grand scheme of things, not very expensive at all, right? Like, what's £3.50 going to get you on a PlayStation Store or a Switch, right? Not a lot. There's nothing deeply special about a nonogram game. There's nothing.
No. Like
the thing about Murder by Numbers is that there's a visual novel that surrounds it, right? The thing about Mario Picross is that Mario's in it. The actual puzzles themselves vary in levels of difficulty, but again, generally, it's never going to be particularly special in that way. In the same way that like a Sudoku puzzle is probably not going to be particularly special in any way. It's not breaking you're never going to break the foundations and boundaries of what the Sudoku puzzle is. Same with the nonogram. But the thing that really grabbed me with this is, first of all, the presentation is immaculate. Like, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
really well put together. So it's got this lovely sort of fantasy, Korean-inspired fantasy art, and it's kind of like slightly softer edge stuff. The UX, the UI is really, really quick to get into. The game fires up really, really fast. The game isn't mucking around, like, in terms of, like, it's not giving you loads and loads and loads and loads of repetitive stuff to get past, to get to the content that you actually want, to get to the utility that you actually want. And then when you actually get into the game itself, playing these nonogram games is a breeze. Like, the actual interacting with the game is really, really lovely. And the two things that really struck me about this is, first of all, yeah, you can just play it free to play, and you know, and you get ads and all that sort of stuff, and they're as intrusive as ads are. But you can just turn them off, and then you don't have to worry about anything else. There's no nickel and diming. There's no gems. There's none of that sort of nonsense. So when you pay to do that, you've now just got a really well put together, really well polished puzzle game on a mobile. There are over 1,000 puzzles. Each of them is a really lovely level of difficulty. There's a bit of variation here and there, but they're just about doable by even a bozo like me, right? And that is really enjoyable, because the second point I want to make is that the utility here is that everything I've talked about here, it doesn't make it out to be particularly special, but in some ways it is the perfect mobile game. It is the perfect approach to making a mobile game. It's low barrier to entry. It's straightforward. It's incredibly well produced. It's clearly made with a load of love and attention. And the puzzles themselves take 4 or 5 minutes. So I can do 2 or 3 of them while I'm, waiting for the kettle to boil.
Don't ask.
Or,
right, okay.
Or I can, that classic, portable gaming experience of on the bus, right? I can get through loads of them, and I'm having a great time doing it. But equally, I can finish doing it and go, that's enough for now, and I can walk away, and then I know that it's on my phone waiting for me when I next get bored and I'm stood around waiting for 5 minutes or wherever it is. And that level of value I've really been thinking about how much I appreciate that, and that kind of value doesn't come from PC and console gaming.
Have I ever told you two about the time my son and I met an old man on a walk?
No. What old man?
Okay, so obviously I didn't. So I was out on a walk once with my son, and we were just walking on the streets. He was in his buggy, I was pushing him.
Not the other way around.
No, thanks for clearing that up.
I wish. And we were walking past his house, and it's a house we've walked past a number of times. It wasn't like a mysterious house that appeared and then vanished again. But outside of it was this old man, and he was painting the fence. And it was a lovely summer's day, and he turned to us as we walked towards him and sort of said, "Hello, how are you doing?" And I, politely said hello and just asked him how he was doing back. And he looked at my son and said, "Oh, beautiful boy you've got there." I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And when was he born? I was like, a little taken aback. I think we all, like, whenever anyone asks us for personal information, we're all a little bit like, even an old man on the street with a tin of paint. I was like, "Oh, what are you going to do with this?"
What's your pen number?
Yeah. I thought there's no harm in it. So I told him my son's birthday, and he just glanced away for a second. And without any preamble, he just went, 1759. Battle of the Plains and Abraham. The British defeat the French near Quebec in the 7 Years' War.
And that was it.
I was like,
yeah.
Wow, that was incredible. And then he turned to me, he went, "And when's your birthday?" And I told him my birthday. And he looked away in the distance, and I went, "No, I've not got one for that." So that's it. That's another episode of the podcast. I was there, Sam. There was also Kris, and there was also Pete. Thank you so much for joining in and listening to this episode. If you've ever wanted to get in touch with us, send us a question, letting us know about a game or a film or a book or whatever that you've heard us talk about and you've also really enjoyed, then don't hesitate to get in touch with us. You can reach out on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram at stayinginpod. You can also send us an email, stayinginpodcast@gmail.com. And all of those details are on our website, stayinginpodcast.com, if you've missed anything that I've just said. As usual, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you along with us for this crazy, crazy ride. I do hope that you're staying safe out there and that you're doing all the best that you can to kind of just keep your head above water amidst everything that's going on. The one thing that we aim for this show is to really be a respite and really be a break away from anything else that's happening in the world. So it's a real pleasure for us to know that you've decided to join us for an hour or more just to get away from everything for a while. So I really hope you enjoyed your time with us. Please do say hello to us on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere. And until next time, be well. Bye-bye.